And by the way, out there,
Well,
that hat that you keep wearing, that red hat that says "Make America Great Again," that tells people that you go along with this. So you might as well just put a swastika on the hat.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Because we see it anyway.
That's the moment when a simple disagreement starts to feel like a loyalty test under bright studio lights. Suddenly, wearing a red hat isn't just a political choice anymore. It gets read as a statement, a signal, and something people quickly attach meaning to. And this is where Bill Maher stands out to some viewers. In that moment, he isn't focused on defending or attacking any side. He's making a clearer distinction between one public figure and the people who supported him. It sounds like a simple idea, and in many ways it is. But in today's political environment, even basic attempts to separate individuals from larger groups can spark strong reactions. So if you enjoy watching how media conversations unfold in real time, stick around, because the next response is where the discussion really starts to shift.
Well, I think some people resent the question, like, what don't you get? Look, I'm not going to defend Donald Trump ever, but I would never say that we should put the swastika on the cap, because I think you can hate Donald Trump. You can't hate everybody who likes him. It's half the country.
The room is expecting a moral thunderstorm. Maher shows up with a calculator instead. And that's exactly why his response hits so hard. He doesn't soften his criticism of Trump, and he certainly doesn't turn into a MAGA supporter. He simply points out that if your political strategy depends on treating half the country like cartoon villains, you're not building a winning coalition, you're building a bunker. And bunkers may feel safe for a while until you realize nobody outside can hear you anymore. The bigger issue isn't just the tone of the conversation, it's persuasion. You can't win people over while telling them they're morally beyond redemption. And once Maher draws that distinction, Behar tries to steer the debate towards safer territory. Biden.
I'm nervous about saying anything against Biden because I feel, not that I have so much power, and you have some more than I do, obviously, but
Oh, I don't know about that.
Are you afraid that you might, influence people who are on the fence?
I think you lose all credibility. I do. I mean, my bond with my audience has always been I don't pull a punch.
Yeah.
My bond with my audience is you're not going to like everything I say, but I'm saying what I really think is true.
The real trick here is the appearance of restraint. Saying, "I'm nervous," sounds thoughtful. It sounds cautious. It even sounds responsible. But beneath that is a much bigger question. Should commentators hold back what they truly believe if telling the truth might benefit the other side? Maher's response is basically a warning siren. Because the moment people realize you're filtering your opinions to protect a political team, every opinion you share starts to sound less like analysis and more like campaign messaging. That's the trap partisan media falls into over and over again. They assume loyalty creates trust, when in reality it often destroys it. Trust is built in the moments when your own side pushes back, and you choose to say it anyway. And then Maher brings up the one point nobody in the room seemed eager to address.
Biden just presents as old. It's not really fair.
No.
Because he's almost the same age. Trump is almost the same age as him.
I know.
But Trump doesn't present that way. You look at somebody right away, you can kind of just sum them up. I mean, we are not young, but we don't present as old.
Yeah.
Biden does. I saw him yesterday making that speech.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, he's cadaver-like.
But his brain is good. He's still great.
Well, here's what I said. Like, when I came back after the strike in September, I said, he should get out. Because he's just lost the faith of people. It's not fair. He's actually done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But I said he's going to be Ruth Bader Biden. That's the term I use. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She stayed too long at the fair.
At this point, the celebrity clash turns into something much bigger, an autopsy of an election. The uncomfortable part isn't just the conversation about age. It's the reminder that politics is also about performance, energy, confidence, and the public's sense of trust. Most voters aren't spending their evenings reading policy papers. But they are paying attention to what they see. They notice body language. They notice hesitation. They notice whether a candidate looks like they're leading the march or being carefully guided through it. That may not seem fair, but politics rarely is. And pretending voters don't notice what's right in front of them is how parties end up blindsided by outcomes that had been warning them for months. But Maher isn't finished. He takes that warning and pushes it into territory that feels a lot more like a horror story.
I remember Obama had her over to the White House, like in 2013, to hint, you know, hey, spend more time with the grandkids. That would not be a good idea, Ruth. And she didn't take the hint, and she was not in good health, and she stayed too long, and she ruined her legacy and got the Supreme Court now to be a pretty right-wing organization. Said Biden shouldn't do that, but, you know, ego, he's Dracula. He has crossed oceans of time to be here, and he's not going to give it up now.
That metaphor is over the top, but the point behind it is much more serious. Maher is talking about what happens when personal legacy starts to outweigh public responsibility. Applause can become addictive. The motorcade can become addictive. Even the belief that you're the only person capable of saving the country can become addictive. And before long, stepping aside no longer feels honorable. It feels like fading away. That's often how institutions begin to decline. Not always because of obvious villains, but because people convince themselves they're simply too important to leave. The Dracula comparison works because it turns that idea into something people can instantly picture. The cape, the castle, the refusal to step into the daylight. And once Biden is framed through that lens, a discussion moves far beyond one uncomfortable television moment.
A conservative once said to me, what you guys in the liberal side of it don't get about Donald Trump is we don't like him either.
Yeah.
It's just that in this country, it's binary. I mean, gender may not be binary, but politics is. You only get two choices. And the stuff that they are afraid of, they see Donald Trump as a bulwark against, you know, and that stuff is a lot closer to the home.
That line is like the missing file on a desktop, the one you know should be there but can't quite find. A lot of anti-Trump commentary treats every Trump vote like it's a love letter. Maher is saying something different. For many people, it's more like a panic button than a romance or a show of loyalty. It's not about worship. It's about choosing between two imperfect doors, where one feels closer to the fire. That doesn't mean every fear is justified, but it does mean fear is a real political force. And when one side dismisses those concerns instead of actually answering them, it leaves the other side with an open highway. The real mistake is assuming voters are all asking who is the purest option. A lot of them are really asking something simpler. Who is less likely to make my life feel unrecognizable?
It's like my kid is coming home from school and they're not allowed to tell me if they're transitioning. The school is going to take the side of the kid over the parent. Stuff like that.
Notice how quickly the conversation leaves Washington and ends up at the kitchen table. That's where cultural politics really becomes explosive. Not in a white paper and not in a panel debate, but in someone's home, at dinner, when a parent is wondering who actually has authority over their child. At that point, whether every detail of a viral story is perfectly accurate starts to feel less important than the emotional reality people are living in. There's a growing sense that big institutions are making major decisions while ordinary people are being asked to stay outside the room. And when voters feel shut out like that, they usually don't respond with careful nuance. They react. Strongly. That's why Maher keeps circling back to culture. Because culture is where politics stops being abstract and starts hitting home.
There is a lot of crazy stuff on the left. This book, there's stuff that each side is going to like and probably stuff they're not going to like so much in there. Because that's the answer to the Donald Trump situation is what's going to get him elected is this woke stuff that a lot of people in this country just don't go for.
The warning is pretty direct. Maher is saying the left keeps handing Trump a ladder and then acting surprised when he climbs it. What makes it sharper is that he says it without trying to move over to the right. That detail matters. Criticism from an opponent is easy to ignore, but criticism from someone who sits closer to your own cultural space lands differently. It feels less like an attack and more like an intervention. There's a clear line between defending equality and defending every strange activist slogan that gets attached to it. When that line disappears, voters stop hearing compassion. What they hear instead is confusion dressed up as certainty. And once that happens, the argument doesn't stay on Maher's couch anymore. It moves straight to the White House podium.
Watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed.
Now the boomerang comes back with teeth. The View often positions itself as the common sense table, where reasonable voices break down the behavior of the unreasonable ones. But that only works as long as the audience trusts the diagnosis. Once viewers start noticing the same emergency language used over and over again, the urgency starts to fade. The warning words stop feeling like warnings. That's the risk of political overstatement. If everything is Hitler, then nothing is. If every opponent is labeled a conspiracy theorist, then nobody feels reachable anymore. And if nobody feels reachable, politics stops being persuasion and turns into theater for people who already agree. And the next clip shows exactly what that kind of theater costs.
These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American people.
It is. You know, I wanted to start with that crazy absurdity because during my tenure as White House press secretary, there was a lot of absurdities coming from the press. I remember one briefing where Ryan Lizza bizarrely asked me if Trump was happy that the South lost the Civil War, to which, like, you could see me, I stopped, I looked at him and said, that is absurd. I mean, you'll deal with these kind of crazy questions from the White House podium.
That answer lands with two separate punches: credibility and consequences. One is aimed at The View itself, as a kind of entertainment-driven politics where applause can sometimes make a weak argument sound stronger than it is. The other is aimed at the wider media ecosystem, where a loose claim doesn't just disappear after the break. It can turn into a legal issue, a trust issue, or a branding problem that sticks around far longer than the segment itself. And even if you don't agree with the messenger, the point is hard to ignore. Audiences are more skeptical now. They screenshot, they replay, and they compare what was said to what actually aired. The old approach, say it loud and move on, is starting to fall apart. And that's why the final shift in the discussion hits a different nerve entirely: immigration.
3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office. Can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
That exchange may look simple on the surface, but there's more going on underneath. One perspective focuses on separating illegal presence from criminal history, while another combines those ideas into a single category. It highlights how important language is, since the way terms are defined can shape how an argument is understood. Across the broader discussion, certain labels like Nazi, woke, or criminal are also examined. When used too broadly, these kinds of terms can lose their original meaning and become less useful for clear communication. In this context, Maher's approach is that he pays attention to when language becomes too convenient or stretched. He questions different sides at different moments, pointing out where discussions may benefit from more balance and clarity. The main idea isn't about choosing sides. It's about maintaining trust in communication. When any discussion focuses only on one perspective, it can become harder for audiences to stay engaged or feel fully represented. Ultimately, the question becomes whether public conversations can remain clear and fair without oversimplifying complex topics. When clarity breaks down, audiences often become less connected to the discussion as a whole.